Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I don't want to do a long, opinionated intro again. I want to talk about how it's Women's Month and women are incredible and it would be amazing if they were running the world, and then apologize because I didn't go all in on women guests for March because I didn't plan for it. But I do have a badass woman on this week, and I'll talk about her later, because now I feel like my hand is forced to talk about what's going on in the world again, because holy shit, we're in a fucking war. I guess we were at war last week too, but I didn't feel like talking about it. And I'm not going to say too much about it this time, because I don't know what I believe about the whole why behind this war. I mean, there are so many stupid reasons we could be at war. The craziest reason is that our supreme leader was chatting with his son-in-law, and the son-in-law was like, I think Iran's going to attack us. And then our American Ayatollah listened to his relative, the newly minted billionaire, and attacked. That's the story that came out of our king's mouth. But the dude lies about everything, and he's been doing so on public record for about 40 years. So how could I believe that? I mean, we really couldn't be at war just because the son-in-law said to do it. There are plenty of other reasons that I can think of for the US to start a war. The obvious one is to make everyone forget about the whole Epstein file things. And when I say the files, that gets our commander-in-chief off easy. When I mention those files, I'm talking about him getting off, but with children, which is gross. And while I don't want to believe that, I totally 100% believe that our draft-dodging ruler is a scumbag behind closed doors. And I get if you're angry with me or anyone else for saying things like this because you don't believe any proof is out there and that this is all fake news. This is a dude who said grab them. He actually said that about women, and there's no argument about that from anyone. If you still defended him after that, I'm not going to say that you're the problem. But what if you met our president one day with your wife, and he took a liking to her, and he grabbed her that way? Is that what would need to happen before you saw the truth? I don't know. Back to my common sense-based beliefs onto why we're at war. The final reason this dude could have us at war is because he thinks that being at war, he can get another term out of it. Fuck that guy. I don't hope he dies, because that's terrible. We can only wish that on people like Bin Laden. What I do hope is that he loses all ability to move, communicate, hear, minus a terrible ringing in his ear, and that his body is always itchy, but he can't scratch. And I hope he's stuck like that for years. Actually, that's wrong of me too. I guess I just hope that he goes of natural causes in the next couple of hours. Anyways, that's my intro. It sucks that we're at war and that we're wasting so much money on bombing schools and shit. The track record with kids recently is really bad. They're either fucked or they're dead. And on top of that, the $20 billion that we spent on this war already could feed the homeless, provide the healthcare subsidies that we need, and do so much for people. But all this is going to do is get rich people richer. Speaking of getting rich people richer, I got my first ad for next year's Icon Pass today. I got my $1,700 pass for free this year, but if I were to average out how much skiing cost me per day, it would be like $300. A lot of people didn't have a good experience with skiing this year because of the weather. And I know you need to sell passes, but maybe read the room and change up your approach a little bit. Act like you're human. We know you want your money again, and we're going to give it to you. But give me a break. It's been a challenging year to say the least. Which means, if you're a brand, it's not the most ideal year to launch your brand's new outerwear category. But that's just what my guest this week is up against. Cassie Abel is the founder of women's ski and bike brand Wild Rye. And before that, Cassie grew up on Vashon Island, won state championships, had a Hall of Fame team sports career, and then went to work for some of the snow industry's powerhouses before starting her own brand. This is a business episode with an elite team sports athlete who also happens to rip on skis and in business. Before we get into the show, I want to thank you for listening. I want to ask you to tell a friend about the show and share my social posts. All of these things help the show grow, and they all are greatly appreciated. Finally, please support my incredible sponsors who make this show happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Insta360 action cameras. Now, it's time to chat with Cassie Abel. Is it true that you're related to one of the most important news reporters of our time, Veronica Corningstone?
She's been renamed Jean Anderson, but yes, in fact, Jean Anderson is my aunt.
And she was in that movie.
Well, Jean Anderson is the real-life Veronica Corningstone. She was the first female news anchor for a major news network in Seattle on NBC. She was also the longest running female news anchor, 45 years.
That is pretty cool. And that is one thing that I thought I had to ask because someone had brought up Veronica Corningstone, but someone else brought something else up that I have to ask about. When was the last time that you skied in a bikini?
Oh, just about a year ago with Chelsea Handler.
Yeah, tell us that story. That sounds pretty rad because she seems like one of the most fun people out there.
Yeah, she's amazing. So we share a mutual friend, and that mutual friend was helping her organize a epic ski and bikinis photo shoot, and that shoot ended up taking place here at a small mom and pop mountain called Soldier Mountain. And yeah, I got to ski in bikinis with Chelsea Handler and about 20 of my best friends and a few of her best friends from Whistler. And man, it was an epic party day.
I mean, it seems like she's one of those people that not only skis, but apres as well. Did you guys totally send it?
Yeah, there was some sending it involved. And yeah, she was just like the most gracious, wonderful person. It was so fun to spend time with her.
And is she a good skier?
She's a great skier. Yeah.
And when you think about great skiers being celebrities, I would think in Sun Valley, you probably see all kinds of different people come through. Mm-hmm. Who's the best skier that you've ever seen on the hill? Celebrity-wise, of course.
Yeah, celebrity-wise. Honestly, Chelsea is one of the stronger celebrity skiers I've seen. You know, on the mountain in Sun Valley, it's really hard to tell who's who.
Yeah.
Everyone's in their ski costumes, if you will. It's a cool place because no one really cares about celebrities that much. So they're kind of under the radar here, which I think is why a lot of celebrities do choose to come to Sun Valley, is they don't get bothered and heckled. We're pretty used to seeing them in the lodges and whatnot, and no one really gives them any mind.
Well, another place where celebrities probably wouldn't get bothered that much is where you grew up on Vashon Island. It's kind of a mix of hippies and rich people and K2 people, or at least it used to be a long time ago. And you were born and raised on the island, or I read that you were born and raised on the island. And if you're born on the island, does that mean you're like born in a bathtub?
I was actually born at Swedish Hospital in Seattle, but I was taken home from the hospital to Vashon Island, and my parents built the house that we grew up in themselves. They were total hippies. They bought a piece of land, 20 acres of land right in the heart of the island back in like the 70s for like $20,000 or something absurd. And they cleared and built our house. And yeah, it was a great place to grow up. We had a creek running through our yard, and my parents gardened, and I don't know what else they did with their time.
I mean, when you grow up on a place like Vashon where all the locals are all about keeping Vashon weird and keeping it unique and keeping it artsy, are your parents part of the people that are fighting to keep it like that?
Yeah, they are very involved in the community. And I wouldn't say they're on the weirdest end of the spectrum, but, you know, and they spend half their year skiing here in Sun Valley. So I'm so lucky to be so close to them now. But yeah, they love it. My mom has like book groups and article groups that she goes to. They're big supporters of the Art Center. My mom was super involved with an organization called Partners in Education. Back in the day, I remember her going to phone-a-thons to raise money for teachers at the public schools on Vashon. So they really showed me what it takes to be involved in community.
Which is funny because you didn't even go to the public schools on Vashon, I don't think. Or you might have in like elementary school, but I feel like you went to the most elite, super rich school in Seattle.
Yeah, I did, but not till 7th grade. I went to elementary school on Vashon, with the exception of 1 year that we lived here in Idaho. But I did, yeah, starting 7th grade, I was ready for a bigger world, if you will. I'd been living on this amazing little island, but I just needed to see something different. And I pushed my parents pretty hard to let me go off island to school.
Well, when you think about being on island and this little hippie island that you grew up with, I mean, I spent 8-9 years on the island going to work. And I guess my Vashon story is I would pick up hitchhikers all the time. And there was this one dude I'd pick up all the time over the years. He'd have like a rucksack with him that had a hammock, and he would be going out to pick mushrooms in the woods, and he'd be staying for like 2 weeks at a time to get a big bag of mushrooms, and then he's going to go sell it. And he was as hippie as you could get, crustier than any person that you'd see at a dead or a fish show. But that was like a real life Vashon dude. I mean, what's your best Vashon story like that?
Honestly, I feel like I was so young when I spent the majority of my time on Vashon. I just remember going to the creek and getting super muddy and just being like a feral child growing up. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted. And I mean, I was a pretty good kid, so pretty straight and narrow, but we'd go romp around in this creek and play in the mud. And It was a very rough and tumble outdoor childhood where we got dirty and it was very safe. We rode our bikes to our friends' houses. But I do remember at one point, I think we had a goat for a mayor. So that was probably my most Vashon story.
That, I think, is pretty crazy that a goat was elected mayor only on Vashon Island. Only on Vashon Island, too, would a ski company live on an island, which is like the worst place to put a brand like that because you have to ship product on and off the island. It was just such a bad idea. But it started as like a dog cage company. And K2 was really important to the fabric of the culture of the island from 1962 to 2008, I feel like. And your experience with K2, I mean, were kids always going to the factory and stealing shit from the dumpsters and doing all that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The dumpster diving for a fresh pair of skis was a Saturday activity for sure.
And did you ever get to go to any of the K2 photo shoots and all the different activities they would have on the island?
I don't really remember. And this is my mom brain kicking in that I remember very select pieces of my childhood. But K2 was such an important part of like the fabric of who I am and where I came from that I wrote my senior thesis in college on K2 and on Smith Optics here in Idaho. So these two brands were so much a part of my North Star and my upbringing. So not quite photo shoots, but very integral into my life.
Did you have friends and family that worked for K2? I mean, were you connected in that respect as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you recall Rich Green from back in the day. Yep. I grew up with Adam and Jody, his kids.
I still see Rich every once in a while. He's now over here on Alki.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah. But your family, or at least you, weren't some island hippie. Like I said, you went to some rich school in Seattle.
Oh, God.
Bill Gates went there. Paul Allen went there. The McCall Hall brothers went there. And Cassie Abel went there. I mean,
epic.
Did that place just feel elite? Like, did you feel like you were walking down the halls of greatness when you go to a school with Bill Gates and Paul Allen and that kind of person?
I mean, we were very fortunate because Paul Allen and Bill Gates donated a lot to the school, but I was just a kid. I didn't really think twice about it. I was so into sports and they had such good girls sports growing up. I was really into photography too, and they had a photo program. So I just was so grateful to be able to do the things that fueled me in addition to getting a really fantastic education. But looking back, I mean, it's like a college campus. It's beautiful. All these old red brick buildings. Yeah, I'm very privileged in that way. I can't deny that.
Did you ever get to meet Bill Gates or see him in person at one of your school events?
No, I sure didn't. But my uncle, I think, was the same class as him. So I've heard some stories.
Oh, well, that's cool. I read some stories in the Epstein files. I don't need to hear any more about that.
Yeah, no.
But what does suck about going to a school like that, because I think everything is great other than how much it costs, and the commute, because when you're on Vashon Island and you have to commute to school when you're a teenager, on average days, I would think round trip, it's 3 hours of a commute. And then on shitty one boat days, you're like a 7-hour commute, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty consistently 2 hours each direction, maybe a little bit more. And I played sports every season. I played soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. So I was leaving Lakeside in North Seattle at 5:30 or 6 p.m. and just hoping that I caught a boat and then getting home at 8, doing my homework, going to bed, getting up at 5 a.m. and doing it all over again. And I don't know how I did that for 6 years.
No, it's like you pretty much had a full-time job working 80 hours a week your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty used to it. Lends well for entrepreneurship.
But what's crazy to me is that this is a ski podcast, and we haven't talked about skiing at all yet other than a brand.
Yeah, it's true.
But your athletic career isn't known for skiing. It's known for team sports. I think you won 4 state championships between soccer and lacrosse in high school. Were you the best player on your teams too?
Soccer, absolutely not. I was like the only player that didn't play club soccer. I mean, my teammates went on to Notre Dame, to Princeton, to Harvard, UCLA, like all of my teammates on the soccer team. I was just like the tall girl that would get in the way of the goalie and usually was pretty good at knocking some garbage rebound shots in. But lacrosse was my jam. Lacrosse is really where I shone, and having played soccer and basketball my whole life, when I picked up a lacrosse stick, I knew that that was my sport. That's where I stood out.
And when it was time to go to college, did you have some big-time college scholarships lined up for lacrosse?
Yeah, I was recruited to some bigger schools. Berkeley probably was the one that I considered the most seriously, but ultimately ended up going to Colorado College because I wanted to ski. I wanted to have a life outside of lacrosse.
But it's interesting because you're this badass athlete. I mean, a two-time state champion in lacrosse, and you're probably the captain of your team and one of the best players on your team, and you can go anywhere to play. You pick Colorado College, which is D3 compared to a lot of the D1 offers that you're getting. I mean, I guess with lacrosse, there really isn't that much of a future after college. I mean, maybe you can coach and there might be some things that I'm not thinking about. But was it more just thinking about yourself at that point because you're not going to be a pro lacrosse player?
Yeah, I just wanted a well-rounded education. I mean, I was a three-sport athlete growing up. I was never someone who wanted to fully specialize in one place or another. I actually trained with the basketball team at CC for 2 falls, thinking I might play basketball, and then I realized it would get in the way with ski season. And I also just really valued small class size. I was kind of a nerd. I really loved getting to know my teachers and spending time with them and gleaning information from them. So I was worried that I wouldn't have that opportunity at larger universities. And I just was excited about being closer to the mountains, and basketball got in the way of my skiing in high school. And it was kind of time for me to do what I wanted to do and get into the mountains more.
I'm sure your parents were stoked, because why would you want a scholarship when you can pay for a D3 school?
They were so stoked.
And so you go from this system of winning in high school to this college team in your freshman year and your sophomore year, for that matter. It doesn't seem like you guys were that great as a team. Is that tough for you to go from being great to being average?
Yeah, I mean, we did make the NCAA tournament all 4 years. So I don't think the team had made the NCAA tournament for a couple of years prior to my freshman class coming in. So I'd say, we weren't the best by any means, but we had the opportunity to improve. And that was what I was excited about, was being a part of a program that I could impact.
And did it feel like the program was something that they were maybe not totally building around you, but it looked like eventually you're the co-captain and you're the most dominant person that had played at that school up until maybe 2018, where someone has kind of broken some of your records. But did it feel like they were building a program around you, and it was that okay if they're going to build it around you, that you can wait to be great your junior and senior year?
Wow, this is yeah, I mean, I guess it was cool to be a big part of that building process. My class in particular had a really strong class. There was another gal who came in from mainline Pennsylvania the year behind me, and she was just such a phenomenal lacrosse player. So yeah, I mean, it's a total team sport. So I didn't feel like they were fully building around me, but my freshman year, I got pretty put in my place. I had some girls, some upperclassmen that really sat me down and made sure that I understood that I wasn't all that, and that I had to work hard to gain their trust and their respect.
You eventually do that, because by the time you get to be a junior and a senior, I think you're All-American, and your senior year, you're captain of the team, 38 goals, 12 assists, 50 points, and your team is crushing. And when you're playing college lacrosse and you have a team that's making it to I think you made it all the way to the Final Four your senior year, does the school care? Because it's women's college lacrosse, and it's not like one of the A-list sports that people are buying tickets to. Pretty much, is the school interested?
The school was stoked. It was pretty cool. So no team west of the Mississippi had ever had the opportunity to host a Sweet 16 Elite 8 round. So the NCAA tried to host our round in upstate New York, but there were too many graduations conflicting with it. So they couldn't find hotels for every player on every team that needed to go to this site. So they ended up changing the host location to Colorado College. So we played our Sweet 16 and our Elite 8 game at CC on our home field at elevation. And that Elite 8 game, we ended up winning in sudden death, double overtime. And the whole school basically showed up to watch and support. It was really, really cool.
That is pretty rad. And when you think about that, I don't want to say it's lucky that you have it at Colorado College, but when you say you have it at elevation, I mean, in a game that goes to double overtime, where just a little thing can change the outcome of a game, that elevation probably plays into it when you think about it at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about how gassed I was, I can only imagine someone coming from sea level to play at 6,000 feet, how gassed they were.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then when you think about your skiing, how much were you able to actually ski at Colorado College? Because you're a full-time athlete, and I'm sure that takes a lot of your time. Are you able to get up just like once a weekend or something like that?
Honestly, I had big visions to ski a lot in college. I barely went. Lacrosse season started mid-January, and our Christmas vacation was about a month long. My family, very luckily, we spent time in Sun Valley over those Christmases, so I got to ski here. But once I got to Colorado, I quickly realized that CC was actually 2.5 hours away from any ski resort, and I had no place to stay. And it was not quite the ski school that I had imagined, particularly because lacrosse started so quickly after we got back from winter vacation.
With skiing, we didn't really talk about it, but you did spend a year in Sun Valley, I think, when you were a kid. And is that where you really fell in love with skiing? Because I would think it's tough to ski when you live on Vashon, where if you're not going on a ski vacation, it's like a total hassle to get to the mountain and get back in the same day.
100%. I mean, my mother still loves to ski more than anything. She's 78 years old and she still skis pretty much every day.
Right.
It's so rad. But she, as really little kids, before we spent our year here in Ketchum, my mom used to take us out on physical education days on Mondays and schlep us up to Crystal. And man, that was a schlep looking back from Vashon to Crystal Mountain. So my mom really made sure that skiing was in my blood from very early on. But the year that we lived here, I realized how social and fun skiing with friends could be because it was so accessible and how much freedom it gave me. You know, I walked down to the mountain every Saturday and Sunday for ski team and had my hot dog punch card and my Bob Dog's pizza punch card. And I was an 8-year-old and I had freedom. And I had these incredible athletes to look up to. My mom loves to tell a story about how I was just painfully slow getting down college, which if you've ever been to Sun Valley, it's like the most basic of basic runs. And we're standing atop this run called Flying Squirrel. And my mom was a teacher for the 6th grade here in Sun Valley. The year we lived here, I was in 3rd grade. And one of her students just goes flying by us. And I had this light bulb moment. And it's like, if she can go fast, I could probably go faster. And my mom tells me that I never looked back. And that was the clicking moment where skiing really clicked for me.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start with longtime sponsor Elan Skis. And if you haven't skied on an award-winning ripstick yet, you're missing out on something that ski brands have long said wasn't an option. A lightweight ski that powers through anything and truly rips. It's game-changing. And Elan, while they've been around for 80 years, have been changing the game of modern skiing by doing things like adding side cut to straight skis with the Elan SCX, which changed the whole industry. They're building skis by skiers in a place with ski culture in the Slovenian Alps. And most importantly, they're supporting local shops. When the competition goes and starts selling direct, Elan sticks by their retailers who have been by them since the beginning. Elan is just built differently. And they innovate with a purpose, and that's to make your on-snow experience better, easier, and more fun. It's this approach that brought you the Ripstick and all of their award-winning skis. And when you're in the market for a new pair, visit an Elan retailer, demo a pair of their skis, and you'll know why Elan has built a cult following here in the States. To find out more about all the skis or to find an Elan dealer, head on over to elanskis.com. Next up, it's Insta360 action cameras, the only 360 camera that matters these days. These are the best action cameras on the market. They capture everything around you in 8K 360-degree video. It's next to impossible to miss the shot, and your footage won't be shaky thanks to the super smooth stabilization system, which is so important when you're on the mountain. Insta360 developed their X5 and X4 Air cameras with skiers and snowboarders in mind, which means they feature a freeze-proof design, batteries with longer run times, and a super durable design that will have you getting footage from the park to powder. And when it comes to editing that footage, Insta360's proprietary editing program makes it easier than ever to create Hollywood-level content or just a simple edit for you and your friends to enjoy. It's easy. Insta360 is the best action camera on the market, and for listening to the Powell Movement, they're going to give you a special offer. When you head on over to Insta360.com, they're holding a ski bundle sale for their flagship 360-degree action cameras, including the X5 and X4 Air cameras. When you're at checkout after you make your purchase, enter the code POWELL, that's capital P-O-W-E-L-L, and you're going to get a free ski pole mount from the good folks at Insta360 Cameras. Those are my sponsors. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. You ski a bit through your high school and college, but then you end up graduating college and it's time to get a job. And you do 2 years, I feel like, of entry-level finance in Colorado. Are you still skiing on the weekends? And is that one of those soul-sucking things where you have to work 9 to 5 and you're like, how the hell did I get here from Vashon Island?
Yeah, and I was actually in investment banking. So I was working like 7 to 11 most days.
Oh, miserable.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable. But I got to know a group of kids that grew up in Denver through lacrosse, and I was like the girl who tagged along with a bunch of guys because one of them had a house in Vail. And so I just tagged along and invited myself as many weekends as I possibly could, and honestly ended up hanging out with this guy's mom as much as them, and tried to leave them alone for some boy time. And I just wanted to be in the mountains. I'd spent enough time like playing sports that kept me from skiing. And so, yeah, I went up with them a lot. But still, Denver's really far from the mountains, it turns out.
Yeah, I-70 sucks too, especially like when you were there, I feel like, and afterwards. Mm-hmm. So it's time to get out of Denver because I-70 sucks, like we said. It's far from skiing. And you're miserable in your job working 7 to 11, and you're this person who's been outside your whole life. You've been an athlete your whole life, and now you're chained to a desk and you're skiing on the weekends, hanging out with this dude's mom. How do you end up getting the job at Berkeley to coach lacrosse? Because I would think that's a godsend, like you needed that.
Yeah, definitely. So when I quit my finance job, I was still in Colorado, and the club lacrosse coach at Boulder basically begged me to help him coach. And so I drove from Denver to Boulder a couple days a week and coached this club team at the time and just had a lot of fun with it. And I saw this job opportunity come up at Berkeley and had sort of always, well, honestly, I was recruited to play at Berkeley, so there was a little bit of kismet there. And I kind of wanted to just see what I'd chosen not to do. So yeah, I was hired to be the assistant coach at Berkeley and got to spend most of my days outside in Memorial Stadium on that turf field where the football team plays. Yeah, it was an adventure, but I still didn't get to ski.
But when you do that, because this gives you a total yin and yang of like, you chose this small school and you got that great education, you got the one-on-one with all your teachers, but then you get to experience Berkeley and see what a big D1 school is like. Did it make you think, man, maybe I should have gone this way, or did it make you happy with your decision to be at Colorado College?
It made me really happy with my decision. I felt like I got to experience them both enough. But, my lacrosse coach in college encouraged us to play intramural sports. She encouraged us to ski and get out and go hiking and do other things. She believed that we'd come back refreshed and have fun. And the mentality at a D1 school is like no skiing, no doing anything else that you could hurt yourself with. You are owned by this team. And, this is no slight to the coaching staff at Berkeley at all, because they were amazing. But it was a very different mentality. And looking back, I was like, I don't think I would have had fun. And you play better when you have fun.
I mean, is it more Berkeley's all about winning and Colorado College is all about developing humans and winning?
Yeah, developing humans and winning, 100%. I got to be a whole person at CC.
So you're coaching at Berkeley. I think you also do some work with the GMR Marketing Agency, which is a powerhouse marketing agency that's been around forever. And while you're doing that, do you kind of like actively seek out a job in the ski industry? Are you kind of like, I love skiing, I'm smart, I have a great resume, I may as well transfer all my skills to something I like? And is that how you find the job at Targhee?
Yeah, well, I commuted to Tahoe every weekend. So once I stopped coaching and got my weekends back, I met a group of people. I actually picked up my best friend at a bar. We met at a bar and she told me she was going skiing the next day. And I was like, I think we're going to be friends. And so she invited me to go to her ski house for the weekend. I literally met her at this bar, the Mauna Loa, in total dive bar. And she ended up being my roommate for most of my time in San Francisco. And from that day forward, we rented ski houses for the season in Tahoe. And, we were kind of the psychos that by hell or high water, we were getting to the mountains every weekend. And I found myself sitting in traffic for up to 13 hours on some crazy weekends to get to Tahoe because some Mazda Miata tried to get over Donner Pass and spun out and shut down the highway. So, yeah, there was a winter when it was really, really bad in Tahoe. I mean, the snow was great, but the traffic was horrendous and the lift lines were horrendous. And I ended up reconnecting with a group of guys that I'd known from my sort of summers in Sun Valley working at this bar, the Cellar Pub. And we got interlodged at Snowbird. And by the end of that trip, they basically had me convinced that I needed to be living back in the mountains full time. And I committed to myself that by next ski season, I'd be living in the mountains, even if it meant, waiting tables or working in a ski shop or whatever. I needed to be back in the mountains. I felt like my whole self back in the mountains. So yeah, I started poking around. I started talking to Smith. They took a really long time to hire, but this job at Targhee popped up and they took a chance on this girl that worked at Visa and asked me to move from San Francisco to Driggs, Idaho, which at the time was a very different place than it is today.
Is it more militias and all red?
No, not necessarily militias and all red. It was just tiny. I mean, the community was tiny, and it was honestly a lot more like Vashon. It was very hippie, but then with this Mormon influence. So it was just an interesting mix of people. And, me coming from a very progressive city of San Francisco where it was massive and there was a booming social life, I showed up in this town and was like, who am I going to spend my time with? But I had a great time there, and my boss at Targhee was amazing. And I had a lot of friends in Jackson, so I spent a lot of time commuting over the pass for my social life.
And you did that job for a year, and then you leveled up. And it sounded like you kind of were talking with Smith earlier, and they were just taking a long time to hire. But
yeah,
eventually, was it like, man, I can't do this at Targhee anymore, and there's a Smith job, and I want that because that's my dream job?
Actually, I got about 9 months into my job at Targhee, I got a phone call from Tag Kleiner. So anyone's
legendary
who's an OG in the industry, knows that name.
He's like a fishing guy now, I think, right? Like Sage or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's the chief marketing and product officer at Sage, Reddington, and Rio Fairbanks on Bainbridge Island.
Yep.
But he called me and he was like, hey, our last hire didn't work out. And I know we took forever and you took another job, but we would really like you to reconsider. And you don't turn down that opportunity. So,
no.
Like I mentioned, I wrote my senior thesis in part on Smith. It was dream job, dream town. And so, yeah, about a year into Targhee, I moved back to Sun Valley and took the global communications role at Smith.
And is a Smith job one of those deals where you're in-house with a brand you love, your coworkers all become your best friends, and after like a year, you're like, I'm going to be here forever?
100%. I was never going anywhere. I was a lifer.
And when you think about being the global comms manager, what's day-to-day life like at Smith?
Even though it seems like a big company, we all wear a lot of hats. So being the comms manager meant I was doing all of our ad buying, our PR, our social media at the time, because social media was just emerging as a channel. So I was spread pretty thin, doing a lot of different things. But we were also getting out for bike rides. It was one of those really amazing work hard, play hard places. We had Baldy board meetings, which meant we were, having meetings on the chairlift. It was such a cool culture. Everyone was really smart, hardworking, but we also got after it in the mountains. And it just was a brand with so much soul.
And you were right there. I mean, Smith was founded right in Sun Valley. Bob Smith, I believe, was just like a skier there who wanted to be able to see when he skied. So he figured out a goggle that he could put like a lens in there. And the company kind of exploded over the years. But you guys are located right in downtown Sun Valley, I feel like. And you had could you just like have a locker and go ski on the weekends, and people at work on the weekends just kind of gearing up and heading up to the mountain?
Yeah, I mean, people were doing that midweek. We went on missions to Galena Pass before work and would come in a little late and then stay late. And, there was a bike tuning shop in the basement, and we rode right from our office. And then, Baldy was a 3-minute drive away. So, hop in your car and go take a lap or two with your coworkers and be back at your desk by the end of lunch.
And it's one of those places where it's a clubhouse, too. Like, after work, you're having beers, too, and just shooting the shit of, like, all the cool things you're going to do.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so the vibes at those kind of companies and where the culture really lives and is created is pretty amazing. It's not created, it's created on the mountains with the people. But it's really cool, the vibes that are created with these companies. And then with what you're doing, with the media buy, that was such a big thing, especially when you were at Smith as kind of the tail end of the big media buys. But magazines were important, and you were dealing with the magazines across all categories. When you think about what Smith was spending, how many millions of dollars are they spending on ad buy back in 2000 whatever?
Millions. I mean, it was millions in ad dollars at the time. And we're working with everyone from Powder and Bike Mag to Outside Magazine, the digital outlets, New Schoolers, Free Skier, Ski Magazine, you name it. And even Vision trade outlets. That was super sexy.
I would think the sexiest part about it, though, is that you're this person that has pretty much to these ad guys or to these magazines, you have a pocketbook with $3 million in it. They want a piece of it. And did you get wined and dined all the time just because that's part of the game?
I did, yes. Every trade show, I got taken out to a really nice lunch or dinner. It was definitely the heyday. And I do remember that Matt Wibby, who is still, I believe, the publisher and ad sales guy at Frequency, Ski Journal, Funny Feelings Inc., he invited Tag to go heli skiing in Alaska rather than me, and I never let him hear the end of it. I was like, it's my budget, dude. He did make it up to me. He took me to Island Lake Lodge after I was done at Smith. He called me. I was first on his list when someone bailed, and he called me, and I had to be in Fernie the next day, but I got there. And it was awesome.
What was the best free trip you got because you managed those ad dollars?
Honestly, this Island Lake Lodge trip was pretty darn epic. It was just a really great collection of industry people. The terrain was really cool. And yeah, it was a special trip. I just finished, sort of wound down my time at Smith after they relocated and was doing PR full time and quietly getting Wild Rye off the ground. But it sort of reconnected me to the industry in a way that was really special.
And were you at Smith when they started scaling back their media buy? Because at one point, either right when you were leaving or right after you left, the print industry, while people are going to say that print is not dead, if you look at print in 2003 and you look at print today, print is fucking dead. There's like 3 magazines printing 20,000 copies a year or 40,000 copies a year, where there used to be 8 million magazines being printed every year.
Yeah.
There are some great print things out there. I love Rogie, so Mountain Gazette is really what I'm going to say, and I love Slush as well. But in the grand scheme of things, a lot more people listen to podcasts than they'll ever read print, regardless of what those print guys say, because they've always lied about their numbers, even when they were selling to you. But that's just how that game goes. But were you there when you had to be like, hey, we're going to start shifting our ad dollars to where people are actually spending their time?
I think it was sort of just happening as I wound down my time there. You know, we went through a few different shifts of like leaning into more mainstream outlets for a little bit of time, which was just insanely expensive. I mean, a full page ad in any more mainstream magazines, like $100,000 for a page is insane for one issue, or at least it was back then.
Yeah.
But I think that scale back happened right after Smith relocated and I parted ways with the brand.
Speaking of that, you have this perfect life. You have a great job at Smith, probably one of the best jobs in that building. You have a boyfriend at the time, place in Idaho, and you can see yourself doing this forever. Did you have any idea that Smith was going to move to Portland?
I mean, we started to see the writing on the wall about a year before the official move happened. Safalo got a new CEO. She started turning over all these rocks, trying to figure out what was going on with this like strange brand out in Idaho that was completely independent from the rest of the umbrella company, didn't really integrate with any of the other brands in any way. The Italians started showing up more often, which was always a bit unnerving. Yeah, so we weren't sure, but we got called back from an outdoor retailer.
I remember that. I totally remember that, actually.
Yeah, like, I can't remember what came first. I think we had to do a survey of, like, what mattered to us in terms of, like, where we lived and whatnot. And so that was sort of an indication that we were moving, but we didn't know where. And we got called back from outdoor retailer, which, you know, anyone who's been to outdoor retailer knows you don't call an entire brand back from the show without creating major gossip.
Yeah, you were changing flights and shit.
Yeah, I mean, we were hopping in our cars and like leaving midday because we had to be back for a meeting with the Italians at 9 a.m. the next morning. And we all kind of knew that that meant they were going to announce where they were relocating us to. And I think everyone's stomach just dropped and everyone was on pins and needles. So, yeah. And then, of course, the whole industry is now talking and speculating and the rumor mill is flying.
So you have till a certain date to make a decision. Portland, Sun Valley, it's night and day. It's like you have this amazing life in Sun Valley, and you can stay with the homeless teenagers in Portland if you like. But that's probably not what you wanted to do. I guess they call them unhoused these days. I'm sorry if I offended anybody there. But there's a lot of teenagers there whose parents really love them, but they don't want to go home. But either way, you decide to not make the move. How hard was that for you?
Oh, it was an impossible decision. I mean, I dragged my boyfriend at the time out to Portland. He made it really clear he would not be moving with me if I decided to move, that he had no interest in living in Portland. I was offered a promotion through this move process. And so, I was sitting there like weighing my career where I was going to have so much more opportunity and responsibility. But it also meant that I would be traveling a ton and I would be that much farther away from doing the things that I love to do. So it came down to the day our decision was due. I actually left for work. I think it was like February 15th, 2015. And my boyfriend, Mike, who's now my husband, thought I was moving to Portland. He thought I was going to work to tell them I was moving to Portland. And as the day went on, I just continued to like have anxiety about it. Thinking about, okay, if I do this for a year, how do I move back to Idaho at the end of a year? And I made one phone call that really sticks out in my mind. I called Greg Randolph, aka Chopper, if anyone knows Chopper, former Olympic mountain biker. He had my job at Smith before me. He was running Visit Sun Valley at the time, marketing organization, promoting tourism here in the Valley. And I called him and I was like, Chop, like I'm supposed to be telling EC whether I'm moving or not today. Do you know of any opportunities here? Like, is there any reason I should not do this? And I remember he just said to me, he's like, Cass, if you are having this conversation, you should not move. You're smart. You'll figure it out. And that kind of gave me the courage to walk in there and be like, I don't know what I'm doing next, but I'm not moving to Portland.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start out with Outdoor Research. I could spend a lot of this ad telling you all the tech and why Outdoor Research is better, but know that in the 1980s and the early 90s, Outdoor Research built a reputation on functional quality outdoor gear that pushed the limits of innovative possibilities. And those who were function first were all about OR gear because it was and it still is built better, and Outdoor Research is still pushing those limits of innovation. This year, the outerwear focuses on 3 new collections, the Cloud Chaser for backcountry and the Powderverse and Hemisphere collections for freeride, as well as some staples in the line like the Snow Crew collection. These outerwear systems are styled for and by athletes like Mark Adma, Troy Podmilsack, Zoe Aitken, snowboarder Neil Provo, and others, and that's why this outerwear collection not only looks so good, but each piece is more functional than ever, and they're all you're going to need in any conditions. To find out more about the new collection, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing, and now is the time to think snow. And skiers, snowboarders, weekend warriors, tubers, sledders, snowbikers, snowmobilers, snowshoers, sled doggers, shovel racers, snow angel makers, ice skaters, snowball fighters, igloo builders, you get it. The doers of winter are starting to get ready to shred, and post-shred, it's all about après. And this year, do après the right way. Forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, forget about not taking more runs on the mountain, forget about getting in trouble on the way home, because with a beer from Best Day Brewing, you don't have to worry about any negative consequences, just incredible flavor. Blind taste tests prove that you won't be able to taste the difference between a Best Day and your favorite beer with alcohol. The only difference you'll notice is how good you'll feel in the morning, and you're going to remember what you did last night, which is almost refreshing as a Best Day itself. To celebrate your best day yet, next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Best Day. Or you can always buy it on your Alaska Airlines flight, Amazon.com, or head on over to bestdaybrewing.com to get the full assortment of Best Days. Those are my sponsors. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. That's such a huge decision for your whole life. I mean, I'm sure you've thought back on it a bunch of different times of your life. But when you're making that big of a call and your whole life changes up, do you lose a big piece of your identity for the first couple of years? Because I did a long time at K2, and I was the K2 guy for a long time. Then when you leave, that part goes away, and it's just a weird existence. You were probably the Smith person for a long time. Was it a weird existence not having that for a little bit?
It was definitely a weird existence. I definitely felt like a piece of me was lost. It was also a really weird transition because it was kind of a contentious transition. And so internally, there was a lot of big feelings and tough conversations. And I didn't feel like I was welcome with the brand for a while after having made that decision. I just felt like really alienated from this brand that I believed in and loved so much.
You're not on the team anymore.
Yeah. Oftentimes when you leave a brand, you still have like great relationships with everyone. And, I had good relationships with people, but because this move was so controversial, there were people that were for it and there were people that were against it. And if you were kind of against it, you were not welcome. Like I remember walking through the trade show and I just felt like really insecure walking by the Smith booth for a number of years. And that's completely changed now. But it was a very unsettling spot to be in because, yeah, like you said, so much of my identity was wrapped around this brand that I believed in and loved so much. And suddenly I'm out here freelancing and trying to figure out what my life looks like next. And on the flip side, this industry, the ski outdoor bike industry is such an amazing industry. And the second I announced that I wasn't moving with Smith and I was leaving the brand and starting this freelance business, I was wrapped in a giant bear hug from our industry, and the number of opportunities that just landed in my lap because I put that out there was incredible.
So you start your own comms firm, and while that has to be scary, it works out. The industry gives you the big bear hug. You get a lot of brands, and all of that's working out for you. And your story, while it was cool enough already, you're an All-American, you're a Hall of Famer for lacrosse, but at this point, you and a friend decide to start a brand, or in the next couple of years you do. And what's the why behind starting your brand?
Well, okay, I have to back this up a little bit because you talked about Rogi a minute ago. So my last big trip at Smith was a press trip to Punta Mita area, and Rogi was on that trip. And I remember, Pacifico-fueled late conversations about the state of the industry and what I wanted to do next and what we needed more of. And I just kept coming back to women need better support in this industry. Athletes are getting a fraction of the marketing airwaves, female athletes specifically. The product is pretty mediocre for women. There just is so much that can be done for women. And, we're 50% of the population. We're huge participants. We're the fastest growing segments in all these sports. And it's therapeutic talking to him. But a couple of weeks later, he called me and he was like, hey, you need to meet this friend of mine. She has very similar feelings to you. She currently works at Specialized Bicycles. You guys should talk. I think there's something there. And so he put me in touch with my now former business partner, but the woman who, we started Wild Ride together.
Yes.
And, it turned out we actually knew each other from my Tahoe days. We'd attended several weddings together. And so it was kind of this full circle moment of Rogi reconnecting me with someone I once knew. And yeah, we decided to launch Wild Rye in 2015, summer 2015, when they had these conversations. She had this idea more fully baked. She had a business plan. She was already in motion. And I pitched her on, hey, you can't afford me and my marketing skills and whatnot, but I believe so deeply in this. And this is what I want to be doing with my future. Let me be your partner in this. And so she did. And we launched Wild Rye to bring women, beautiful and technical, the and technical being a key piece of this, that fits, because fit for women is wildly important, and most outdoor clothes don't typically fit women's curvaceous bodies and athletic thighs and booties.
Yeah.
And we felt that if a product fits and looks good, it will inspire confidence and more women will spend time outside.
You guys come up with a name for this product, and you say Wild Rye now, but in the beginning, it was something similar to Aspen Mountain Gear or Highlands Gear or Buttermilk Gear or something like that. You were so smart. How did you not see a cease and desist coming with your first product line?
Funny story there, too. Katie's dad was actually a U.S. patent and trademark lawyer.
Okay.
And he was very, very busy at the time. And so he gave Katie instructions on how to search the USPTO website to see if there was a conflict. And so there was no conflict in the apparel space. But what we didn't realize is that there are things that are overarching trademarks. where they own every category of the trademark rights. And so, yeah, we definitely didn't see it coming, but man, it hit swiftly.
Well, I think it's a good thing in the long run because buttermilk as a name for a product compared to wild rye, I just like the ring of wild rye better. It's easier to say that now because it's been around for a while. But either way, you have to make that change. And then when you think about what you're doing, creating a brand, I would think the hardest part of it, sure, you can design great clothing and you can get all the right people to create fits and looks and all the different things. But everything else in the world, it all comes down to money. And you can't make a product line without generating the money to do that. And so do you have to go beg, borrow from every single person you know to get that first round of capital to start the line? Like, how much are you and Katie each individually putting in? And then how much do you have to raise for that?
It was just us. We didn't raise a dime until 2021.
Oh, and she was gone. So you raised the dime.
I raised the dimes. Yep. But Katie put in a significant amount of her personal money that she'd saved up. And then I really had to invest more of my capital when I bought her out. And so every dime that we made went back into the business so that we could afford to buy our next product line. We also maxed out credit cards. And just to make it even harder is that our first product line came back with 50% of our products completely flawed.
Yeah, we're going to jump into that.
Yeah.
First, before we even talk about your product line being flawed. So I worked for a company, K2, that builds products overseas, although they'll say made in the USA. That's not the case. They were building things overseas. I had a roommate, Ryan Schmies. He did a lot of the graphics. They would send him over to China all the time, and he'd spend 3 weeks in China, come back, and he'd be like, yeah, we have to be over there to make sure they're not cutting corners, because if we're not there, sometimes they'll do something a little different to make it easier on the factory, but when the product comes back, it's built wrong, and it'll break, or things are wrong, and we might not notice it at first. And K2 would have somebody at the factory making sure that things were being built correctly. But you guys are doing this totally differently. You're not going overseas. You're going to find a factory here in the U.S. When you find that factory, I mean, were you there for the whole sampling and production? Because you've alluded to the product didn't come out right. But how did it not come out right?
They gave us the runaround for months. They weren't communicating. We didn't know when our product was going to be on the production line. Katie had been out there, I think, a couple times, but yeah, we also didn't know what we didn't know. So, we sampled things and the samples were approved, but then the actual bulk production came in completely flawed. So, it's on us to some degree, but it's also on this factory. We approved samples and then they went rogue on us.
And that totally sucks because you two have to be salivating, waiting for your boxes to show up. But you're like, our product is finally going to be here. We've been waiting 2 years for this day. We're finally going to launch our business. And then are you the one that opens the boxes and seeing everything come out wrong?
No, Katie did. It was all shipped to Tahoe where she lives. And she opened the boxes and she called me and she's like, we're fucked.
I mean, is it tears or is it anger or is it what goes on there?
I think there were tears. I think there was anger, but I think there was a lot of tears. Like, oh my gosh, what do we do? We're supposed to be launching this week because we finally got this product. It's 4 months late. And the leg bands on our chamois shorts were sewn on inside out. So the silicone that's supposed to hold the leg bands in place was on the exterior of the chamois. And that was like the big one. But also our baggy shorts for mountain biking were an inch out of spec, which basically means the waistband was an inch to 2 inches too wide around the waistband. So a size medium was fitting like a size large, and a size large was fitting like an extra large. And so we had to problem solve for those two issues very different ways. And the chamois we couldn't launch. It was like such a flawed product. We had to hire third-party seamstresses to unsew and re-sew those leg bands so that the silicone was on the interior and the garment actually worked.
Are you at least able to break even on the product, or is it a total loss?
I mean, we ended up selling through everything. So once we got it corrected, we did sell through everything. I think we were about break even, but every dollar immediately went into our winter line that we were preparing to launch.
Because you're a full 4-season brand, you're going to do base layer for ski and snowboard, and then you're going to be doing bike stuff in bike season. So you've got your seasons covered.
Yep. That was always our plan. We wanted to be like many of the European brands that had bike in the summer and ski in the winter, whereas we saw most of the U.S. brands were really climbing centric in the summer. And we saw a huge opportunity in the bike market in particular. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the bike industry with Smith, and Katie was full on in the bike industry at Specialized. So that was a market that we saw tons of opportunity to improve women's product.
So you've got these plans, and then you've got these challenges with the first round of products. And with you, you're an athlete, and you've been on teams, not that many bad teams, but you've been on teams your freshman and sophomore year in college that were kind of putting things together to get to be better, to get to your junior and senior year. But with the brand, when you're struggling in the beginning and you have all these hurdles to get over, I don't know what that does to your mentality, but it seems like it must put a chink in the armor in Katie's mentality, because eventually she leaves the brand. Is it something where she just can't handle the stress of being a business owner and not seeing a future?
Yeah, I mean, Katie and I had very different approaches to the business. I was on the front side, like marketing, all the shiny stuff, and could feel the momentum, hear people talking about how excited they were about us. And Katie's just on the back end dealing with shit. Looking at numbers and not seeing the numbers math, but also not feeling the momentum that I was feeling. And yeah, I mean, she just got burnt out, and I don't blame her. I mean, she was dealing with the really hard stuff in the early days. And she was like, I'm just too risk adverse for this. And, you know, she was pretty conservative. She was really not willing to just go for something. She really needed it all to 100% make sense. She needed all the math to math before she would take a risk to launch a new product or something. So yeah, she came to me right after Thanksgiving 2018 and called me, and she's like, I just don't think I have it in me. I'm too risk adverse. I want to ski. I want to go back to teaching, or, you know, lean into the teaching thing more. And what I didn't know at the time is that she had dreams to be a novelist. And she didn't tell me that then, but she's since published 2 novels. At least one of which, maybe both of them, were on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Oh, no way.
She had this other, not secret agenda by any means, but she had this other dream that wasn't all Wild Rye, whereas Wild Rye was my single focus, my one dream from a career standpoint. This is like what I wanted to do. And so she gave me 2 options to either wind down the business, sell off our remaining inventory, or I could buy her out. And she gave me an incredible deal to buy her out. And, you know, we had a very amicable split. We continue to be each other's biggest supporters. And I'm grateful for the relationship that we built. And I wish we kept in touch more. We're both busy, but I love it when I get a text from her or I see her name pop up in the book world. And that's kind of how that happened. And then I had to learn how to do all the shitty stuff of the business.
Yeah, by the time January 1st, 2019 rolls around, Wild Rye is all yours, and you have to build the brand, do all the shit work, and do everything yourself. And while that's got to be tough, you've already kind of got some momentum that you said. You've been able to feel it building. What's your first big account that allows you to quit your consulting work, go all in with Wild Rye, and not have to worry about it because, like, hey, I have these guys, and they've got a huge order, and that's going to make sure that I can have a salary and keep going. Did you have a brand that did that allowed you to quit?
No, the big accounts just made it more expensive because it meant that we had to invest more money into product. So, I mean, we actually got in with REI in 2017.
Okay.
I think we launched in 2018. Katie and I went and did that pitch together. I have a great photo of us standing outside of REI headquarters, just pinching ourselves. Like, I can't believe they actually want to talk to us. So yeah, they placed an order for 2018. And pretty quickly, Backcountry followed. Evo was soon after that. I remember like knocking down the door at Evo when I was visiting my parents in Seattle or something and talking to this guy, John Kennedy, trying to convince him to buy our Wild Rye gear for the bike category. And so, yeah, I mean, we kind of hustled our way into those 3 partnerships really early, long before I wound down my consulting business. So, yeah, I mean, really, COVID is what forced the change for me. COVID is what led me to winding down White Cloud. Just to give a little more color commentary, I had a baby who was 3.5 weeks premature on December 27th, 2019. And 2 months later, COVID hit. And so I have these 2 businesses, a new baby, a global pandemic. My mom was hospitalized with COVID in that first wave. I got sick with COVID in that first wave. My dad randomly had a heart attack in the middle of all that.
Jesus.
And there was an earthquake in Idaho. I'd never felt an earthquake in Idaho. And our Wild Rye website got hacked. So it was just like, something's got to give. I don't know what. And meanwhile, all my White Cloud partners are panicked. And I was like, okay, guys, we're good. Let's just hit the pause button. You guys go reset and we'll touch base in a couple months, see where we are. But being able to tell my clients that they could just hit the pause button, figure out what's going to happen in this crazy world that we're living in, allowed me to lean more into wild rye. And yeah, so when partners started coming back, I was like, I'm done. I can refer you to some great PR people, but I'm going to wind this business down and go all in on wild rye.
And with wild rye, I mean, part of the whole story of it is you keep having to generate capital time and time again to be able to build product lines. And the most exciting product line that you're building is your outerwear product line, because that's something that I think has been a long time in the works of, like, we're going to get ourselves to a point where we can launch outerwear. And to do it, I think that's why you had your GoFunder or WeFunder, or I forget whatever fund.
WeFunder.
Is that how you raised the capital to be able to do your outerwear line?
Yeah, I mean, we'd been dreaming of outerwear since day one. That was always the ultimate goal. But we wanted to prove ourselves as a high caliber brand because outerwear is such a high price point product. We wanted to build trust before we went there because we wanted it to be technical and really stand up to the elements. And so it was about 4 years in development, and we were planning to bring it to market fall 2025. But in April 2025, tariffs hit. And so the tariffs on our outerwear had the potential to keep us from bringing it to market. And so that forced the timing of the WeFunder, the equity crowd raise, where we invited our customers and our community to become partial owners in the wild rye brand.
Was that hard for you to do, to give out stake in the brand? Because you've been so protective of it over the years and not taking money, and now you're giving a little equity away?
Yeah, I mean, I should say we raised a friends and family round in 2021 and raised another small round in 2022. So I had started taking capital in exchange for equity. But yeah, the WeFunder was new territory. And, you know, I had a lot of tough conversations with my marketing director and an advisor about, you know, hey, I see this as a great opportunity because we are such a community-minded brand. And I see a great upside in giving our community the opportunity to invest and sort of share in the upside of the wild rye brand rather than VCs in Silicon Valley or New York or wherever. But at the same time, does it signal that we're in trouble? Like, we don't want it to be a woe is me situation. The brand is really strong and we don't want this to signal otherwise. And so, yeah, we'd been talking about doing a WeFunder for about 6 months prior to actually launching it, long before tariffs became a thing. But tariffs and the impending outerwear launch really sort of forced the issue when it did. And yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time on messaging and being really thoughtful about why we wanted our community to have this ownership. But it did mean that I sold more of my business than I intended to at this time.
But you have to do what you have to do to get the product out there. And you get the product out there in a time when we are having a crazy winter, not the crazy winter that you would like to see us having, that any of us would like to see us having. Has that had a big impact on sales?
We've done a pretty good job of selling through much of our product, so very grateful for that. But I worry about the health of the industry, and I talk to a lot of our retailers, and retailers are struggling, and I think brand loyalists come to us directly, and they're going to support us in this new category regardless of snow conditions. But those folks just walking into stores who aren't necessarily familiar with wild rye as a ski brand yet maybe aren't going to commit given the snow conditions. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a real tough winter on our whole industry, and just morale's down.
Well, we're going to have a miracle March, and then next winter's going to be incredible, and you're going to sell through everything that you have. But with a brand like yours, when you think about the end game, do you eventually want to be a giant brand that is the authority on great women's outerwear? Or is it more like the beverage model where you create this beverage and you eventually want to get bought by one of the bigger guys? Like, what's your end game?
That's a tough question. It's not a tough question. My goal is for Wild Rye to be the women's outdoor brand of choice across categories of outdoor sport. Really leaning into high quality, high performance product that looks good, feels good, fits, you know, all the things that women need, but across categories of outdoor sport. And in order to get there, there's a few different options. We can continue to fundraise and build slowly, or there's potential acquisition down the line. I mean, I have investors that I have to answer to at some point. Luckily, most of my investors are quite patient, but at some point they're going to want a return on their investment. And so whether I can find a really great family office to help me build and potentially make whole on investors' investments, or if there's a sporting goods conglomerate that wants to speak to women better and really own the women's market. Yeah, there's a few different options of that end game.
All right. Well, I will say that is the body of our podcast, but we aren't done because it's time for something that I call Inappropriate Questions.
All right.
This is where I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And I was able to get a PR and marketing maven, Wild Ride's own Maro LeBlance, to ask you 3 inappropriate questions. And are you ready for question number 1?
I think so.
I think, since you're her boss, she probably took it easy on you, is my guess. But
Maro doesn't take it easy on anyone.
Okay. Well, we will jump into our first inappropriate question. Here we go.
Hey, Cass. I've been tasked with sending you 3 hard-hitting questions, so here we go. It's no secret that you are kind of competitive when it comes to team sports, but you are also very much about empowering women and mentorship and sharing your knowledge. So in that vein, what is your go-to round 3 freestyle Golande coiffing move?
Oh, that that has nothing to do with the interlude. I believe it was a pyramid and then pouring a bucket of beer on my head and the rest of the pyramid. And that won us the Greater Yellowstone Quaffifier Championship at Powder Week in about 2016.
Were you there when Ann Thomas lost her tooth?
I can't remember.
Oh, she took a glass to the tooth.
Oh, man, I can see how that can happen.
Yeah, and lost it. I think she got a big round of applause and won some kind of award, but also lost a tooth, which is worse.
Yeah. Oh.
That is question number 1. We are going to go to question number 2.
Number 2. Your costume collection is next level. It is larger than your everyday life collection of clothes. I mean, you have an entire closet that is fully dedicated to costumes. So I'm curious, have you always been obsessed with sequins and fur, or is this something that developed later in life?
Because you were a jock for a long time, and you don't think about jocks having the biggest closet full of costumes and being the party animals, because when you're the captain and Hall of Famer, you're usually focused on sports, but it sounds like it might be different with you.
Yeah, well, lacrosse goes hand in hand with competitive drinking games. I actually made the front page of the Colorado Springs Gazette my senior year of college in an article about student binge drinking playing Beirut. So I got a talking to from my coach and from the economics department about being a better representative of my team and my organizations moving forward.
Why did the economics department care?
Because I was a total nerd too, and I was like really close with the economics administrative person and my professors there, and they were like, we want better for you. Okay, but the costume closet, I get that from Colorado College. My first block and eighth block, so we had one class at a time and they were broken into blocks. And so first block and eighth block, the seniors put together a party calendar for every night of the block, and every night had a different theme. And so theme parties were really big starting freshman year in college, and I just slowly started to build out my collection from there on, and this collection has moved with me all over the West.
I love that you've kept it, because that's the hard thing to do with costumes, is to keep them over the years, but you've got them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, half of Wild Ride's basement at our HQ is my costumes, because my husband keeps dropping them off here and says he doesn't want to look at them anymore.
All right, well, we will go with your final inappropriate question.
Imagine a world in which you could only choose one for the rest of your life. Would it be Warm Springs patio happy hour or roundhouse lunch? Good luck.
Ooh, don't make me choose. Please don't make me choose.
You've got one choice. It's easy.
Oh God, this is maybe my hardest question. I mean, Warm Springs patio means that it's sunshiny and like the weather's beautiful and you're probably wearing a costume. But roundhouse lunch is, spritzes and warm hot cheese. I think for my gut, Warm Springs happy hour is probably better than eating cheese for the rest of my life. And the sunshine.
All right, well, we will go with that. Warm Springs right there. That is the podcast, and that's Inappropriate Questions. And what a story you have. I mean, you came up on this hippie island, and then you went to this elite school, and you're this athlete who dominated everywhere you went. You win all these state championships. You're a Hall of Famer. And then it's time to figure out your life for yourself after college, and you try the regular 9 to 5, and you realize that sucks. And then you find an incredible home for yourself in the outdoor space. And then when that burns down, it was time to start it all over, and you build your own thing. And you've done what no other woman that I know has done, started an outerwear brand from scratch, and that's a lot harder to do than it sounds, but you're making your own dream a reality, and I thank you for telling your story, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
So that was time with Cassie Abel, and what a different story than most that I have on this podcast. While Cassie is a great skier, skiing wasn't everything to her as a kid. In reality, it was like the number 3 or 4 sport for her. But then she got to an age where team sports ended, and well, skiing isn't just a sport, it's a lifestyle, and it was a lifestyle that was waiting for Cassie to jump back into head first. Cassie is sharp as a tack. In my estimate, the $1 million or so that was invested in her education since 7th grade, well, they helped her get some great gigs, but what really separates Cassie from the rest is her tenacity and her willingness to power through every challenge in front of her, and that's why Wild Rye is where it is today, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with her brand in the coming years. That's the podcast. At this point, I want to thank you for listening. I want to ask you to review me wherever you listen. And if you need to make stickers or tents or banners, I do that too. And you can email me at mike.powell@diecutstickers.com and I'll get you my discount and the best pricing out there on stickers, tents, banners, all that stuff. I don't get commission, so I do get you the best deal. Just don't tell my boss. Finally, please support my incredible sponsors who make this show happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Insta360 Action Cameras. Have a great week, everyone.